All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're putting on our digital detective hats. We aren't going to be looking at some glossy corporate brochure or a heavily polished pitch deck. Nope. We're diving straight into the raw, unfiltered code that literally makes up a company's digital footprint. We're going to take a raw SEO crawl export, which is basically a structural map of a website, and use it to completely reverse engineer a business.
So it begs the question, right? What can a simple spreadsheet actually tell us about an entire business strategy? Well, it turns out kind of everything. We're looking at a massive CSV file exported directly from a crawl of a company called Leo Global Digital. Now, on the surface, yeah, it's just a giant spreadsheet full of status codes, canonical links, and meta tags. Most people will look at this and just see the technical plumbing. But for us, this data is basically a crystal ball. We're going to use it to completely reverse engineer their identity, figure out exactly who their target audience is, and uncover their ultimate sales strategy. Now, at first glance, this raw matrix of data is, well, it's pretty intimidating. You've got these endless rows of technical variables, pixel widths, crawl depths, HTTP status codes. It honestly looks like machine language. But hidden right in the data, specifically in the meta description column, is the actual soul of the company, neatly translated for search engines.
Look what happens when we extract the exact meta description from their homepage URL. That dry, boring data suddenly transforms into this perfectly human-readable mission statement. Right out of the gate, the spreadsheet is telling us they aren't just doing one thing. They're blending AI, creative social media strategy, and then these heavy-duty business software systems like CRM and ERP. And did you notice that geographic tag right at the very end? That leads us perfectly into our next major clue.
Which brings us to profiling the target demographic.
By aggregating the recurring keywords that are injected across dozens and dozens of URLs in this spreadsheet, we can instantly uncover their hyper-focused niche. We're seeing phrases like small businesses and micro businesses repeated over and over again in their title tags, their H1 headers, and their meta keywords. You combine that with specific geographic targets like USA and even Tampa, Florida found buried in their contact page row, and boom, we know exactly who their ideal client is. We're definitely not talking about enterprise software here. This whole thing is built specifically for the little guy in the American market.
Okay, moving on to their digital service arsenal.
If we go ahead and filter the spreadsheet by URLs and page titles, the data reveals a massive, honestly almost overwhelming suite of back-end tools. I mean, we're talking customer relationship management, enterprise resource planning, material resource planning, point of sale, warehouse management, project management, human resources. It is an alphabet soup of heavy operational infrastructure, and let's be real, this is the exact kind of complex back-end plumbing that usually absolutely terrifies a micro-business owner.
But scanning the H1 and H2 columns, we find out exactly how they package it to make it less scary. All of these intimidating acronyms funnel directly into their core proprietary software ecosystem, which they call LeoBiz. The raw text data shows them positioning LeoBiz as this ultimate back-end automation engine. They're promising to streamline operations so the business owner doesn't have to sit there juggling 10 different disconnected software subscriptions.
But here is where their strategy gets incredibly clever. The crawl data also shows a completely separate set of URLs dedicated to a highly creative front-end arsenal. We're seeing landing pages optimized for brand identity, logo design, social media marketing, an AI website builder with built-in SEO, and even dynamic digital signage. So they aren't just selling the boring back-end plumbing, they're selling the shiny, attractive storefront right along with it.
Let's look at the pitch and how they translate code to emotion.
To figure out how they actually pitch this massive combination of software and creative services, we don't have to guess. We literally just look at their H2 header tags. Hidden inside the H2 tag of a very specific URL called Small Business Challenges, we find this exact emotional hook. Feeling invisible in a crowded market? They are aiming right at the deep-seated anxieties of their target audience. They know exactly how much micro-businesses struggle just to stand out.
And they follow that right up in the subheaders of their graphic design pages by promising to make these micro businesses look big. That's it. That's the psychological trigger right there. They use the front-end creative services, the slick logos, the social media presence, as the attractive bait. It solves that immediate visceral emotional problem of feeling small and invisible.
And finally, scanning the H1 tag from their pricing page reveals the ultimate sales pitch. One vendor, one plan, one promise. Another header right below it says, just one number to call. This is the absolute genius of their business model laid entirely bare in the HTML code. They know small business owners are completely fatigued by managing dozens of different tech vendors, so they just swoop in and offer a single, unified relationship that handles both how the business looks to the outside world and how it operates behind the scenes.
Now, let's pivot for a second and look at some data anomalies and highlights.
One of the genuinely great things about doing a raw web crawl is that it hands us structural metadata, things like word counts. If we look at their standard homepage, it sits at a very easily readable 672 words. Which makes sense, right? That's pretty standard for a modern, punchy website that's trying to convert visitors quickly. But if we scroll down to row 11 and look at their legal pages, we find a massive outlier.
The Terms and Conditions page clocks in at an absolutely astounding 10,923 words. To put that into perspective for a second, that is roughly the length of a short novel or a remarkably dense academic paper. So why does this matter to us? Because it proves that despite the simple, friendly, look-big marketing front, the legal back-end of an all-in-one tech provider handling CRM, ERP, and payment gateways is incredibly complex. They are managing real, highly sensitive business data, and dealing with that requires an absolute fortress of legal protection.
So, what's the verdict? We've successfully translated rows of raw crawl data to reveal a highly sophisticated company. Their target is laser-focused, small and micro U.S. businesses. Their offering is essentially a two-pronged attack. Hook them with front-end emotional branding to make them look big, and then smoothly onboard them into a massive, sticky, back-end software ecosystem called LeoBiz. Their winning strategy is simply being the single vendor that resolves all the chaos of the modern digital marketplace.
And that leaves us with a pretty fascinating thought to end on today. We just uncovered an entire corporate strategy without ever once talking to their CEO, simply by reading the meta tags and word counts that they leave sitting out in the open. So I have to ask you, if someone crawled your website today, what hidden business secrets are sitting right now in the raw code of your own digital footprint? Something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.